Hello, everybody. Welcome to the new weekly FanTeam show. Love it. I'm always making you guys chuckle. I'm Gianni Buttice. I'm joined by Ben and Jason. They're too busy laughing, so more about them in a minute. But look, it's great to have football back. And my favourite thing about having football back this season is I genuinely believe, and this maybe my deluded self, that I've got a chance of winning a 200k. And that's what we're all playing for. And you're watching this show because you want to win the 200k. And it's just massive, massive money, life-changing amount of money if you finish in the top few. But I know many of you might be thinking, I've not had a great start to the season, or I didn't have double Bruno and Salah, or I just want another FanTeam entry. Well, the good news, and a drum roll, please, is you can have another entry and you can come in at 79 whopping points. That isn't bad at all. So until game week 2, until the deadline, if you want to play FanTeam, you can. You start at 79 points. And this show is all about producing a team for that late entry. So yes, you come in at 79 points and there might be people above you. There'll be 50%, by the way, around approximately people below you of the FanTeam entries. But you also get to target all those players that we might be jealous of because we started back a week ago. So we've put together some teams. If you're coming in with a late entry, what that team might look like. Really exciting times. Ben, that's pretty cool, right? 79 points. I mean, only about half of my entries were above 79 points. And you did pretty well. You had a few below, but mainly above, right? Good start to the season.
I've done all right, mate, for the guy who faces a lot of flack for his 1 or 2 differential decisions. About 80% of my teams above that. So very happy. And the ones below, I mean, we're just talking fractional. 1.5 points, I think, one team and 6. I mean, I think Bruno and Salah underpinned all of my teams. And it was just a case of which one do you captain. So I think on some I did go with Bruno, the others were Salah, and that's what made the difference between those teams above and those teams slightly below.
Yeah, love that. What about you, Jace? Good start to the season. You had Bruno, Salah, I guess, underpinning most of your entries.
Yeah, the same. Bruno, Salah. A lot of data went into my selections and everything, and it seems to have paid off. All my teams actually finished above that 79 mark. The lowest points that I had was 82. The rest were, much higher. What I did want to say as well about this late entry, which makes it even more exciting, is the fact that prices are frozen. So, like you usually see with these start of the season, knee-jerky people bringing in certain players, you're not going to be caught out by that. So I think that's a really brilliant point as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really good point because we've seen in, say, FPL, for example, we've seen price rises already. The likes of, who's gone up in price? The likes of Bruno and Simiskas from Liverpool. But yeah, as I said, guys, today's show is all about looking at the players you'll be identifying for your brand new shiny teams, and we're excited about that. But first, let's just look at the prize money just to recap. So if you win this thing, it's 200k. If you come second, 75k. If you come third, 50k. There's prizes all the way up to 5,000 overall rank, right? You finish at 5,000, you still double your money. So we think there's not going to be many more than 60,000 entries, approximately 60,000 entries. So we're looking at around 8% getting paid, 8% making money or doubling their money. Pretty good going. And when you think of 79 points that you'll be starting your game week 2 with, that's currently only 18 points off the prize money. And you're already around 50% of the rank, like halfway in. So pretty good going. So we should turn our attention to some of these players then, shouldn't we? Who do we want to target with our brand new shiny teams? And guys, remember, if you're not going with a late entry, you might be wanting to target these players with your one and only free transfer anyway, right? Remember, you get a transfer every week. If you want to take 2, it's a -4. You can carry just like in FPL. So let's start off with a team that caused probably the biggest result of the weekend for me. Oh, there's a couple. You could say it was United. You could say it was West Ham. But for me, Spurs beating Man City. No one fancied Spurs. Son, Reguilon, Dyer, Tanganga with points at the back look good. I mean, Son up front though, Ben. Not many of us had Son, but actually playing up front, whether Kane stays or not, he's going to get points.
He was in about 2 or 3 of my team, so I always fancied Son. I didn't expect Nuno to make many changes from that last win over Arsenal, their final pre-season friendly. And they went with that attacking 3, Lucas Moura, Stephen Burgoyne and Son. And I really liked it. They caused City a lot of problems. the caveat for me is, it was a great time to play City. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
They came into the season. A lot of players were just returning to the squad. Kevin De Bruyne was named on the bench. He hadn't even completed one training session, so they were far from full strength.
Yeah.
And those that did play were nowhere near up to speed. But look, credit where credit's due. Tottenham still had to go out there and do a job. And you're right, there was some great performances in there. And it shows, maybe for a one-off game, Spurs are still capable of going out and getting those 3 points without Harry Kane.
Yeah. And what do you reckon, Jace, with Son? I mean, we know without Harry Kane on the pitch, he plays as the out-and-out number 9. So we love where he is on the pitch. He's also on penalties. He's the talisman. But even when Kane comes back in, Nuno might play, Son off Kane. He might play them fairly central. Obviously, Son would lose penalties if Kane's on the pitch. But regardless, it seems that when Kane's out the team, Son continues to clock up the numbers. He's not purely reliant on Harry Kane, despite Kane's assists for him last season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he's deployed through the season. And exactly what you said there, I don't think it matters too much if Kane is in or is out. I mean, if Kane is in, he'll be back on that kind of left wing there. And I think he could do well with linking up with Reguilon that we saw was really attacking at the weekend. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Son is a great pick. But for me, I think his price point is just a little bit rich for me. I think I'd rather spend the money elsewhere in my team. And the other thing with Son as well, and Tottenham fans would attest to this, is that I like to call him Baconish. He's very streaky. He goes in and out of form very, very often. And so when you get Son in, you have to kind of almost time it right. It's kind of like jumping on a moving train. If you don't get it, you'll fall off and hurt yourself. And so with Heung-min Son, he's a great FPL asset, but only when he's really hot. And I don't know how Tottenham are going to do at the moment, because in that Man City game, they played quite tight there. The three attackers were really compact and kind of pressing the Man City team. They played quite similar to how Chelsea did in the Champions League final. But I don't know, that they weren't like amazingly attractive attacking wise. The only one that really appeals to me is actually Reguilon from the Spurs team.
And I think he's 5 million as well. Pretty useful. Sorry, Ben, go on.
I was just going to say, I just weighed into the Son debate, but what you've got, and this backs up exactly what Jason said in terms of the streakiness. He's a player that often exceeds his XG because he always takes a lot of difficult opportunities. We've seen at the beginning of last season, these goals from outside of the box, very difficult chances. It's very hard, or nigh on impossible, to maintain that level. And even his finish on Sunday, was difficult. He's not a guy that tends to sort of pick up, the odd tap in at the back post like a poacher as a Harry Kane. So, it makes sense that, you're going to get these moments where everything he touches turns to gold. And then on other occasions, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him.
Yeah, he's just got ice in his veins in front of goal. He's such a good finisher. So if we're looking at, we probably look Spurs attacks on one to keep an eye on. And my best FanTeam entry got 103.5 points, absolutely buzzing off that. Had Dele Alli in it, so I'm quite hopeful at his price point might get something from Dele, although it was quite deep. It did look like it was almost like a defensive unit of 7 and then an attacking 3, but it worked. And when you play City, you just don't have the ball. Keep your eye on a few Spurs defenders, like Jason said, Reguilon at 5 million, Dyer 4.5, although note they are looking to buy another centre-back and they've signed Romero. It could be 2 new centre-backs at Spurs this season. Let's turn our attention, Jace, to West Ham. Who's impressed you the most there? I mean, flying start, West Ham. I know they were down against Newcastle, but the comeback was pretty special. Sorry, Ben.
Yeah. We'll get on to Ben's comments in a minute. He might have a slightly biased viewpoint for some reason, but yeah, West Ham were magnificent, and it's kind of a continuation of how they were last season. Yeah. I think the questions will be once Europa League starts, and I think Ben will 100% back that up. But for me, I really like Ben Rama. I was a little bit annoyed that I didn't start with him in my team. I had a last-minute toss-up between him and Jared Bowen. I went with Bowen for the reason that he was more nailed, and we weren't sure if Ben Rama was going to play that 10 position.
Yeah.
And people might say, because I think we're going to put up a little bit later, a provisional game week 2 late entry team, but people might say it's a sideways move to move from Bowen to Ben Rama because they had very similar kind of data. But I look at Ben Rama as being this season's kind of Jesse Lingard for West Ham. He's in those central positions. Bowen is more out on the wing. And I think he's just going to get more touches in the box and those shots in the box as well. So he really impressed. The other one that I loved was Cresswell was part of a back four.
Yeah.
Some people had said, we said on this podcast.
You mentioned it last week, didn't you? I had Soufal. You said spend the extra on Cresswell.
Yeah, and Cresswell was really, really attacking. He had some good set piece work. We saw, Souček kind of get in there and cause problems in the box. And I think that's just going to be a continuation this season with Cresswell. He's just going to deliver those kind of balls to cause problems for teams.
Yeah. Ben, you impressed with West Ham?
I'm not impressed with West Ham. I'm more disappointed with Newcastle. Look, let's not read too much into this. We go back to January last year. Steve Bruce, I want to do it my way. From this point on, I'm going to do it my way. And from that moment in time, Newcastle changed their formation, their setup, their philosophy. They became a more attacking, offensive unit. And that was reflected in their outputs, their goals. They were outscoring teams. But in terms of being able to defend, it all went a bit awry at the back. And I think Jason will back me up with the stats, but I think they were certainly amongst the worst defensive team in the second half, or certainly from that point until the end of the season. So when you look at the quality that West Ham possess, particularly going forward, it's no surprise that Newcastle did struggle and ultimately give, that they come back from behind. A couple of surprises in that Newcastle lineup. Lascelles or certainly Fabian Shaw not being placed centrally. If he's going to go with a 5 in defence, and which equates to a 3 when they're attacking, Emil Kraft isn't a centre back, so I'm not really sure what he's doing in there alongside Kieran Clark and Federico Fernandez. So there's an obvious weak link in there. Freddie Woodman done okay on his debut as well, but there would have been some nerves in that. And I just think Newcastle just weren't great. Once West Ham got a foothold in the game, there was no stopping them. Look, great. We'll take that, that performance, and for what it was good. But once those games are coming thick and fast, for me, it's always about the starting 11, 12, 13 are decent for West Ham. You pick up a couple of injuries. You have a player suspended, and they just don't have that strength and depth for me. So if you're going to go down that West Ham route, capitalise maybe on them now while they've got, while David Moyes has got that luxury of being able to pick these players. But in and around Europe, I think it's going to be a completely different ball game.
Yeah, keep an eye on Antonio's hamstrings when he's playing twice a week as well. But for the time being, Antonio, Benrahma, Cresswell, Soufal, looking like good options. Just keep an eye on the transfer window too, though. Jesse Lingard's likely to stay at United, but if he does go to West Ham, and there has been talk that he could still return, how will that affect Benrahma's minutes? Perhaps it will. But yeah, keep an eye on that. West Ham, points all over the place for FPL and FanTeam. Absolutely loving that for the fantasy football games. But also United, huge amount of goals. We know in these types of games, United are always heavily backed. My favourite FanTeam entry, the one that I mimicked it with FPL, was Shaw, Greenwood and Bruno. Shaw got 1 point. He got a yellow card. But Greenwood and Bruno, absolutely flying. Loving that. Remember in FanTeam, you're rewarded for shots on target as well for midfielders and attackers. You're also rewarded if they play 90 minutes. You get an extra point for midfielders and attackers. So the likes of Bruno that are, that do that week in, week out, you just get those extra little bonuses. So when you captain these guys, it's huge points. Jason, United were flying. We know Leeds is a great fixture on paper for them. The way Leeds play, historical stuff like that. They were 6-2, they beat them last season, 5-1 this. But United look like a team that are going to score a whole load of goals. And goals mean FanTeam points.
Yeah, looking at the Man United team, I mean, pre-season, Ben and I did quite a few kind of interviews with teams. One of them was with Rob Dawson from ESPN, and he talked about how the team are going to switch to a 4-3-3. You've mentioned Greenwood there. I like Pogba just a little bit. I think give him more time. I think he's maybe possibly going to be one of those game week 1 anomalies. But the 4-3-3 either means that Pogba's going to play central midfield, so he's not going to be part of a double pivot. He's not going to have those defensive kind of rules put on him that held him back, or he's going to play on the left wing. And kind of looking at his data as a left winger, he's creating more chances, more shots, more XA per 90. It's ridiculous kind of stuff, and he's occupying the half space, or Shaw is kind of running there, and that allows him to go more into the middle. That could be a really, really interesting prospect. And for his 7 mil price tag, I quite like it. I think he's more secure than Greenwood as well as a start in that Man United team. So people might learn quickly. I'm a long-termist. I kind of think more long-term. I don't want to make too many transfers. I love Greenwood. He is somebody else that can really overperform XG, a bit like Heung-min Son.
Yeah.
Is he going to be nailed when you've got Martial, you've got Rashford, you've got him, you've got Dan James, all kind of competing, and Cavani as well.
And Sancho.
Yeah, for all those forward positions. There's so many. Whereas I think Pogba is a little bit more nailed.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, for me, I look at it and go, Greenwood will be in this team for as long as Rashford is out of it. But of course, when Cavani is back, although I think for the next couple, Greenwood is very safe. But yeah, I mean, the way Pogba played, interestingly enough, from the 4 assists Pogba got, 3 of them were from fairly central areas. But he's not going to, when he plays left of attack, Ben, he's not going to hug the touchline. This isn't like a Rashford when he plays there, or, your typical winger. He will naturally come in field. And when you got Luke Shaw bombing on, that's fine. Pogba, is he one you've ever considered, Ben? Because you love a differential. So, he's a differential.
He is. I must admit, he's not one of my favourite all-time players. And so he's not a player that I gravitate towards. But we talked about pre-season about the possibility of Pogba being played on the left more, akin to his role with the French national team and how he's deployed under Didier Deschamps. I certainly think Pogba has had a say with Ollie in that, and saying, well, look, I need to be playing up the pitch. Pogba himself has held his hands up and he says, you know what, now is the time to stop playing like an Englishman. I kind of tackle, let's do what I do best, play to my strengths, play to my qualities. And that's being the showman. That's pulling the strings. That's bringing that little bit of je ne sais quoi to the United attack. And that's what he's in for. I know you love that with the Geordie accent, by the way. So that's not making the cutting room floor. So I much prefer, like I say, Pogba over. I have concerns over Greenwood as well, just in terms of minute. I think he's a player that will constantly be looking over his shoulder. And even if he does start, I wouldn't expect the 90 minutes with, the depth and the quality on that United bench. By the way, recording here on a Tuesday, Jadon Sancho scored for United today in a behind closed doors friendly against Burnley. So Ollie's give his players another good run out. They won 3-1, and Sancho was apparently he was on fire. So, again, he'll be pushing hard to get in that starting 11.
Yeah. So, of course, we have Bruno in our teams and many Shaw. But, the guys are thinking Pogba could become a really good option, and he's really affordable. I still think Greenwood's great for the next few weeks. Maybe not your long-term pick, but just deadly in front of goals. And also Greenwood shoots a lot. Again, we like these players in FanTeam. So we've spoken Spurs, West Ham and United, perhaps 3 of the big teams this weekend. We're not going to go into Liverpool because we all know who we're looking at Liverpool. But a team we've not really spoken about who also won at the weekend and have got coming into the game a really exciting player. And he's been priced really well at FanTeam at 10.5. That is Lukaku, Chelsea. We've not seen him feature yet, but when you watch Chelsea play, they look like they are lacking that world-class 9. Now they have it. And we're talking about the European champions here. Like, they're already an incredible team. Lukaku's going to get bags of goals. Tuchel's team didn't score many in the league last season when he came in. They played really well, kept a lot of clean sheets. I think Lukaku's going to get scary numbers. And I'm guessing when we put together our game week 2 drafts for the season-long late entries, a few of us might have Lukaku in. Jace, what do you reckon? Lukaku, 10.5 is a great price point for me. Cheaper than FPL, by the way, who put him in at 11.5, I think.
Now, I totally agree that Lukaku is amazing. I don't want to piss on anybody's parade here. But
wait, are you allowed to say that live on air?
Oh no, I'll have to bleep it out, mate. It's I should have said it in French, shouldn't I? A bit like you earlier, Ben.
Les pis or les frites.
But with Lukaku, I just look at him. He's one of those forwards. He's priced nicely and everything, but I think Mason Mount is going to be the big beneficiary. I did a long Twitter thread on this, so people can check that out. But Lukaku coming into the team means for me that Mason Mount is going to be such a good value at his price. Lukaku is going to score the goals, but Mount is probably more likely to last the full 90. I think he's more likely to, assist Lukaku, and I think he's going to get the odd goal here and there, whereas Lukaku is just going to score goals. Mm-hmm. I don't think he'll be too involved with everything else. That's not the way that he plays. He is a goal getter. Mason Mount has just so many opportunities there for so many different things. And I just think that he's the better option now that Lukaku is in there. I'd rather spend that 10 elsewhere. Mainly my preference is for midfielders because they just get so much more points for goals.
Yeah, and the shot, midfielders that shoot as well. You mentioned Mount. He is another one that will shoot on sight. But Lukaku, I think he's going to be brilliant for FanTeam because he shoots a lot too on target, but also I think he's going to come in on penalties. And I know Jorginho's got a very good penalty record. All right, England fans will mention the Pickford miss, but he's got a very good record, Jorginho, but he doesn't have a massive ego. His job in the team isn't to score goals. I think he'll therefore concede penalties to Lukaku, who, by the way, hasn't missed a penalty for 3 or 4 seasons since he was at Kasper Schmeichel when he was at United versus Leicester, saved the last Lukaku penalty in like 2017 or something. I think he scored 11 out of 11 last season, Lukaku, including Belgium goals from pens. So with penalties at 10.5 in playing for the European champions as their only out-and-out number 9, goals, points, do you like him? Or do you think he's too expensive like Jace maybe want to spread funds elsewhere?
I look at the FPL price and I think he's just a little bit too rich. But that FanTeam at $1 million less, he will be in 50% of my teams without question. I feel it. You look at players who have the quality, the ability, they know where the goal is. That's great. But then you also look at what drives that player. And I just feel he's got unfinished business in this league. He's got points to prove. He's got doubters that he'll want to shove words back down their throat. And, that to me is a huge, huge motivating factor. And Lukaku to Chelsea, for me, is almost like the Kane to City. It's that's that icing on the cake, the cherry, which can, if he returned 30 plus goals this season, it would come as absolutely no surprise to me.
Yeah, I'm with you on the points to prove. Game week 13, he plays Chelsea as well. Watch out for that. Sorry, Jace, go on.
Yeah, I've got a question for both of you then. You've mentioned Kane there, Ben. Who would you rather have in your team? Kane at Man City or Lukaku at Chelsea?
Both.
And Kane's not at Man City yet.
if he does go to Man City, I think the question is going to be going forward, who would you rather have? And I would go for Kane at Man City just because the creativity there that Man City has. And I think, like I said, Mount will do more than enough cover work there. What about you, though, Gianni? Do you think that Lukaku, for that slightly cheaper price there, is worth it over Kane, potentially, if he does go to Man City?
If Kane does go City, I think that does change things for me. Lukaku will be in 10% of my teams or 1 or 2, and Kane might be in 6 or 7 of them. But I don't think he will go. I think he stays at Spurs. I don't think City will come in with big enough money. I think Levy will hold. But look, I tell you what, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be having on this show a very big discussion about Harry Kane because the transfer window will be closed. We'll be going into game week 4, and it'll be really interesting because everyone will be going, Kane's staying at Spurs, do we bring him in? Or Kane's gone to City, do we bring him in? And I think we'll be identifying Kane regardless. If he's at City, it's such an obvious pick, perhaps even more so. So yeah, let's hold that one. But I love the idea. In a word or 2 words, where does he go, Jace? Spurs or City?
2 words.
I was thinking,
in 2 words, where does he go?
I was thinking, do you know what I had? I was like, the answer needs to be 2 words. And I was like, Manchester City is 2 words. I was like, he could just say City. So Jace, in a word, City or Spurs?
City.
Ben?
City.
Oh, okay. To be continued. Love that. So moving on, we're going to go through our teams in just a sec, but let's have a quick look at some of the rules. So you can see on screen yourself, like there are very, very, very similar rules here to FPL. There are a few minor changes, and the big ones for me are in FanTeam, you are rewarded if your midfielder or forward has a shot on target, right? You get an extra point every time they work the keeper, every time they have a shot on target. You also, which I love for midfielders and forwards, they get an extra 0.4 if they they get an extra 0.4 if they have a shot on target, an extra 1 point if they play 90. Completely got that wrong, and Ben knew I was getting it wrong and didn't interrupt me. So to confirm, your midfielder and forward gets 0.4 of a point extra every shot on target, and they get a whole new point when they hit 90. Love that. You can see the rest of the points on screen for yourself. And then in terms of the rules, same as FPL pretty much. You don't get chips. Quite refreshing when you got multiple teams. Forget the chips. You do get 2 wild cards. And then pretty much the same. So you can read there for yourself, but play it just like FPL, guys. You make your transfer every week, and you get your 2 wild cards a season. If you carry a transfer, you can 1 week, but then it's wipes. You got to use it. -4 point hit if you want that second transfer for one given week. So let's look at our teams. I put mine up first. Okay, let's go with me first because it's on screen.
You wanted to save the best to last.
Did you know? I was fed up of talking. I wanted to throw to one of you boys, but you're gonna give me analysis on my team. So I'll go through it and you can rinse it or praise it. So I've got Schmeichel in goal. This is my new Game Week 2 teams. This team comes in at 79 points. Schmeichel, I think Leicester look good at the back, knowing they signed Vestergaard. I like it. Trent, of course, Ayling. They were in most teams anyway. But I've also gone with Reguilon at 5 million. I like Spurs at the back after seeing how they've set up against City and knowing Nuno's track record with defenders. And then I've gone Duffy because he's one of the 4 million players that might get more game time than the rest. Son in midfield, again, so impressed with him. Salah, Bruno in there. Ben Rama, didn't have him before. He's in. Tony's in. And then I've gone Lukaku because I just want Lukaku coverage. On the bench, I've also got Christensen. So, Ben, I'll come to you first. What do you like about that team? What do you dislike about that team?
I'll go with the dislikes first. I mean, I had concerns about Leeds heading into the season, and let's take this result at Old Trafford with a pinch of salt, but Leeds did concede goals in pre-season. Everybody seems to be pinning a lot on Firpo coming into this team and transforming Leeds defensively and offensively down that left-hand side. I think it'll take a little bit of time for him to bed in. New league, different environment, completely different style of football. He looks well suited, but until he gets out there and starts playing regularly, we're just not too sure. We talk about second syndrome, season syndrome. Leeds as well. You know what you're going to get with Bielsa. There's one thing trying to combat and counteract what they produce, but they're going to run. They're full of energy. Is this, other teams going to find them out a little bit this season? That would be my only concerns with regards to Leeds and Ayling in that regard. I think the loss of Alioski can't be underestimated at the start of the season because what we've seen, Stuart Dallas being dropped back in at left back, and that's a bit of a disappointment on the back of his performance of last season when he played a little bit higher up the pitch. There's the option there for maybe Bielsa to go with a 3-3-3-1. I think that's the best position or the best formation with Firpo, but whether we're allowed to get that, I'm not sure. With Duffy, 4 million, he's worth a punt, but you do question when the likes of maybe Veltman, who missed out with it because of a close contact last weekend, does he cool down his players? A lot of people asking me, what's that Brighton backline going to be? I think Graham Potter will keep faith in that back line, in game 2, certainly. And he has been full of praise for Duffy for his professionalism since he returned to the club from Celtic. And the other one, Ivan Toney, I think we looked, he's a player that everybody jumped on. I mean, if you hadn't seen or heard of Ivan Toney and you had just listened to the community, you're expecting a Messi. You're expecting a guy who's going to come out and hit 30 goals. What we've seen, and Brentford were great, but we've seen that it's not only this pressure environment where everything is exacerbated massively, and can Ivan Toney play and convert as easily and as freely as he has done in League One and in the Championship. But you also see a team that has to defend a lot deeper, and a lot of his hard work is done, at the wrong end of the pitch.
Chasing shadows.
Yeah, and that's great, and it was reflecting. He had a brilliant performance, and I think I spoke to Az, I think maybe on a Who Scored FanTeam podcast, and I actually said before the ball was kicked that Ivan Toney wouldn't get double figures, wouldn't score 10 goals. But again, at his price, it's always put with a caveat that his price point, he's worth a punt, and on his record purely alone. But the rest, I do like Leicester. You cannot argue with the United and the Liverpool players, and I'm with you on Lukaku. I think he's going to be a great asset. So look, I went pretty gentle on you there.
Yeah,
Gianni,
you have. I'm not forgetting about last week though, but I'm there. I hear you about Tony. I obviously when we play FPL, we only have one team, right? I didn't have Tony. I was there at Fest on Friday night, and everyone had Tony, and I was thinking, if Tony gets a haul here, I'm going to know about it. And you look at the community, you look at those on Twitter and those in the room on Fest, 90% of our community are big on Tony. Now, the reason I don't have him is because I saw other good 6.5 options in midfield, so I went for the fifth attacker. But actually, in FanTeam at 6 million, you look at who else you get for 6, that 0.5 makes a world of difference for me. And we're always short on 0.5s, aren't we? So Tony's an easy pick on FanTeam for me because his price is so good. But Jace, what do you reckon? Good and bad about the team, and is Tony a good thing or a bad thing in it?
Ooh, I'll come on to Tony in a minute, but the good thing about your team, I love how balanced it is, even with Lukaku in there. He's a fairly premium player, and you've still got Salah, you've still got Fernandes, you've still got Son in there too. I mean, there's a lot of
4 premiums.
Yeah, 4 premiums, and you've not really compromised any area of the pitch. You've got a decent player on the bench, Christensen, who can come on. If Duffy isn't starting, you've got Ben Rama in there. Just every area of the pitch is kind of well made up. The criticism that I would give to the side is I don't actually like Schmeichel, and I don't like Leicester defensively. Coming towards the end of last season, the side had a collapse around, I can't remember which game week. Yeah, so game week 20, side sitting pretty, 3rd place, slightly overperformed a lot of their data, and then all of a sudden they had a collapse.
Was it a Justin injury? Did that coincide with them starting to leak goals? Because he got injured around then, didn't he, halfway through?
You know what? I don't know what game week he got injured, but from my data, I'm going to blame a little bit Kasper Schmeichel. He had the worst XG prevented of any goalkeeper in the last 9 games. He let in 6.1 goals more than he should have. Now, I don't know if that's his age catching up with him. I don't know if that was the FA Cup run catching up with the team. But twice in a row now, Brendan Rodgers and his defence, his team, have kind of collapsed towards the end of the season for different reasons. And, I kind of look at last season's runs, look at the start of the season. Leicester kept a clean sheet. I think they were quite lucky against Wolves. And I think they were lucky to get the win there. Vardy, absolutely brilliant, efficient, but should they have won it? It would probably been fair if it was a draw, but I just have question marks over that defence because they've got so many injuries as well, and they're being forced to get Vestergaard in. They're not starting who they would want. They're starting who they have fit at the moment. So that's my kind of question mark there. On Ivan Toney, I said last week that you see kind of a 66 to 70% reduction, what the kind of data from StatsBomb would say on these kind of forwards. And if you're happy with 13 goals for a 6 million forward, then that's fine. He's a talisman, and I think people underrate the talismanic effect, in Fantasy Premier League. But, looking at some of the midfielders as well, I quite like Sarr, I like Benrahma, I like Bowen, all for 6 million as well. But he's going to get the 90 minutes each week. He's going to get that bonus, and he's going to be, the focal point of Brentford. There's not a lot to dislike about Tony. I'm just not as warm as other people on him, because I remember the Pooka party and when it was pooped and everybody was really sad.
I mean, what I would say, and this is a point I made last week, and we touched upon it at the top of the show, a 4-4-2 formation isn't something that I would certainly look to adopt week in and week out in FanTeam, who we know favours that a more attacking side. Managers tend to go with a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3 to maximise or potentially, those 90-minute additional bonus points. So obviously you're doing yourself out of potentially 1 point per week just by setting up with a 4-4-2.
Yeah, so really good point, actually. And I must admit, I don't like the idea of that formation. It was just the way it kind of was set. I guess I am limiting myself with Gilmour and Hart in there. It will usually be 4 at the back. Gilmour would have a fantastic fixture to me to pick him over one of my defenders. I do think I might change the keeper. Schmeichel was put in there as a bit of a rush one. I've got till Saturday, the deadline, an hour and a half for the first game, to tinker. I want Henderson at 5 million. I think he's the best option, the United keeper. But obviously at the moment, we just don't know if he's going to be starting with De Gea. With his sort of, he's been out with, is it still his reaction from COVID? Is that why Hendo's out, Ben?
Yeah.
We've got an update there.
Yeah, it is just exactly that. Long COVID, fatigue. Yeah. There still isn't enough evidence and research to support really what long COVID is and how it affects different players. But what we do know is there's a high level of fatigue, which is stopping him training with the group and training fully. Just doesn't feel 100%. So there's no timeline. It's just take every day as it comes. And he wasn't involved, by the way, in that behind closed doors friendly against Burnley. It was actually Tom Heaton who started. So again, that may be another indication of just exactly where he is in terms of his full recovery. Yeah.
So one to keep an eye on. I may change that 5 million stock. But okay, good. Well, that's given me some good food for thought. I might try and tweak the formation if I can. Although with 4 premiums, you can see why I've had to play 4 defenders, because most teams have 2, some have 3. Very few have 4 premium attackers and Trent. So it's something has to give. Jason, talk us through your team. Sanchez and go on. I'll let you read it out. I can't. Yeah, I can see all the names. Go
on. So Sanchez in goal. Back 3 of Cresswell, Alexander-Arnold, Reguilon. Then the midfield of Fernandes, Salah, Mount, Benrahma, Sarr, and then the top 2 of Antonio and Calvert-Lewin. And then on the bench, the notable kind of players in there are Ayling and Shaw. So probably this game week, I would play Shaw over Cresswell. But yeah, I think it's quite a solid team. It's kind of exploiting what we've talked about, a few of the metrics of 90-minute players. I think Sarr's going to play 90 minutes, Calvert-Lewin, Mount, Benrahma. So that there's probably like 4 players in there that will get those extra points each game week. And then a few of them are talismans as well. But you know what? I've got all the reasons why I have them in my team. I'm most fascinated what you two are going to rip into. I think Ben looks most excited to rip into it.
Do you know what? I'm looking and I would love to. But you've spoke about these players so eloquently many times before. And it's hard to disagree with the numbers, the data, and the rationale. I mean, a couple of things, just observations from the weekend. Sanchez, he was a big favourite within the community. Purely on the eye test, I just didn't think he looked very comfortable. Me for Brighton, looked uncertain on then pieces when the ball was played on top of him. That might be something that teams look to capitalise on. In building really just the Dutch guy is a Sherpin who's coming in. There's a possibility that there may be competition again for places. I know Sanchez had a great second half to last season, but maybe just one to watch. That's all. At 4.5 million is still a great buy. Elsewhere, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I know he's going to be pivotal to that Everton team, especially the way Rafa sets things up. And you would hope with the amount of crosses, I think you've alluded to and you've pointed out many times before, just the sheer number of crosses that Everton get in the box, then he isn't going to be too far away. But I like Richarlison as well in that Everton team. I think we talk about players with points to prove. He went on Copa America duty. They allowed him to go to the Olympics. He came straight back and he was back in that Toffee squad. And I think that was a good sort of, I think it reflects well against both the player, but also that appreciation for Rafa and his staff for allowing Richarlison to go. So I think he feels that he's got to come back and wants to prove something in real. And again, I thought he had a great performance against Southampton.
Yeah, I was fairly impressed with Everton, certainly second half. I think they're going to get crosses in aplenty. You don't pick Damari Gray and Townsend as your wingers if you don't want to get balls in the box. And we know Richarlison and especially DCL will win headers. I love this team, Jace. I think it's great. I love the fact you've identified FanTeam specialist players as well, the 90-minute men, the guys that get the shots on target. The only thing I wonder is if it lacks another premium. There's a lot in the 6, 7, 8 million price category. You've obviously got two attacking premiums. And you've got a little bit of money there on your bench. I know you won't be benching Shaw every week, but if you're not, you might be benching Reguilon or Cresswell. And I wonder if you can make the defence slightly lighter, get a little bit of money out the defence. If you can save 2.5 million somewhere, Calvert-Lewin can come Lukaku, which I would love that move. And 2.5 million can be saved by bringing Shaw down to a 4 million enabler and then Cresswell to Soufal, for example. I know you don't like that specific move, but just for food for thought, or, Reguilon to Dyer. But I've noticed you like the fullbacks. You've got 5 fullbacks here. So obviously you like attacking returns from your fullbacks or assist threat. So no, I can't really damage it too much other than the lack of a third premium. So nice team.
I'm relatively unscathed. Just to reply to like your comments there, with the fullbacks, my mentality is always I don't want anybody really, unless they're absolutely exceptional, maybe like a Rudiger or a Van Dijk, in the air, that is not going to be having an assist or a goal threat. I do agree though that maybe I could devalue. I'm just kind of thinking, rotation. I'm trying to cover a lot of fixtures here with the kind of fullbacks there. And I'm kind of monitoring the lead situation and just seeing how Tottenham do as well. Otherwise, Shaw probably would start. So maybe I should just devalue Reguilon to like a 4.0 and go somewhere else in the team. But the thing with Calvert-Lewin, and you might call me Mystic McKenna here because I'm thinking again really far ahead, but I'm looking at Antonio, Bamford and Calvert-Lewin and kind of, I don't like to plan transfers too much, but I'm looking at, I think it's game week 5 that Antonio switches in terms of fixture difficulty. Bamford then goes into a good run and Antonio will also probably be starting the Europa League round then. And so I'm thinking with those two striker kind of combinations, I can kind of almost rotate through whoever's in form or whoever's playing well at that price point. But I do like Lukaku, and I do like Kane as well. If he does go to City, I have to keep that option open as well. So I do agree with you, Gianni. It's really hard because I've got really good midfield coverage there, but then I don't have that ability maybe to jump up to somebody like Kane or Lukaku. So I accept the criticism and maybe in one of my teams, because this is the thing about FanTeam, I could have this team and then do a second buy-in team just because I like Lukaku and maybe Kane as well.
Yeah, imagine that. Front two of Lukaku, Kane. You'll do very well to have Bruno and Salah alongside those two, but maybe you don't need Bruno and Salah if you've got Kane and Lukaku. Ben, you've got 3 premiums in yours, 3 midfield premiums. You've gone with Son, Woodman in goal. I'll let you read through it.
Yeah, so obviously I try to do a little bit of a differential on the entries that I've already had. I mean, take the starting lineup with a pinch of salt ahead of this game weekend. I've went with Woodman and I've got Sanchez on the bench. The way Newcastle defended last weekend, then, you know, it could be Sanchez that's getting thrown in there. Really like Trent. Don't want to be too disheartened and too swayed. We talked about it on the first podcast. If you do your due diligence, you do your research, you know, and it all blows up in your face after 1 week, don't lose the faith. You know, you've got to stand by the rationale behind why you brought these players in. And defensively, I thought Arsenal went under the radar second half of last season, 5th best defensive record, I think, overall. And Ben White coming into that team can only strengthen it, surely. I think the second Brentford goal maybe highlighted the fact they need somebody, you know, where's your Tony Adams, your Martin Keown, your Winterburn, your Dixon? There's nobody. A great signing for me would have been Vestergaard for that Arsenal team and having a Ben White playing off him. But that's, you know, that's not going to happen. But, you know, Arsenal aren't as bad as the team that they showed on Friday night. Reuben Diaz, you know, nothing exciting there. We're looking for a guaranteed starter, and he's about as pretty much as nailed on as any City player in that team. You know, Edison is the only other one you'd be looking at that back line. And we've discussed, you know, the three main sort of attacking midfielders in Son, Salah and Bruno. Smith Rowe, you know, given the number 10 new contract, he's got a big season ahead of him. For at this moment in time, I do like him as a starter. Maybe if Odegaard arrives, Saka's fit, Lacazette, you know, and Aubameyang coming off, you know, the back of illness, then you're starting to see some real serious competition in Mikel Arteta's starting 11. So that might be a worry. Tony is in there because he's a nice price at FanTeam, and it would be rude not just to throw him in. But Danny Ings, I really like Danny Ings. He's got to be on penalties, and he's shown, you know, when Villa aren't necessarily playing great and they're not creating a lot, which in the first half they were pretty poor at Vicarage Road. You know, he's still always a threat, and he's still one of the, you know, the most clinical strikers in the Premier League. And nobody, I'm telling nobody will put me off Christian Benteke. He is my sleeper this season. Forget the fact that he was subbed that first game because Vieira's went with Mateta. I don't know what's going on there, by the way.
Is this French? Is it French links?
Yeah,
maybe?
there must be some kind of French thing. But look, Vieira will see the light. He has been bigged up Benteke in pre-season. He finished last season so strong, by the way. You know, you may mock, but his goal scoring record for Palace, and you know, he promises that the Eagles will be a little bit more attacking. They were poor against Chelsea. Let's not read too much into that. I had a little bit of hope in the fact that they played 120 minutes in the Super Cup, and I thought maybe Palace could have caught them cold early on. But honestly, when we're talking about players who maybe get 10, 12, 13 goals, I think Benteke is that guy, and I think there's a boatload of assists in there for him. So regardless, he is in my team and he's absolutely staying there 100%. I know you look at that attack and think it's probably a little bit lightweight, but I've more than make up for it with those three attacking midfielders. On the bench, Matt Loughton does exactly what it says on the tin. Lewis Dunk, you know, exactly what it says on the tin. And Oliver Skip, I had him in a few other teams. I noticed he was getting starts under Nuno in pre-season. You know, at that price point again, we're looking at players from back up. We've seen a few. Ryan Bertrand is a player that brings to mind. Positive COVID test on the Friday morning. Ruben Loftus-Cheek. They're cropping up all the time. So when I talk about strength, or players certainly being able to come from the bench, at least I've got that peace of mind and that satisfaction that knowing, you know, should there be any last minute withdrawals, I would have 11 players started. Now, bring it, boys.
Jace, do you want to talk Benteke first, or shall I?
I'll let you do it, Gianni, because you've been waiting for this all week, haven't you? After his last week's words against you.
Fair, yeah. So Benteke, he came on the 57th minute for Mateta. I don't know how he pronounced that.
You see Mateta, I see Matata. Let's call the whole thing off.
I just feel like first game of the season to not get the nod shows that the manager doesn't have absolute faith in him, and I just think he's rarely going to play. I'd be very surprised if Benteke plays 90 minutes in the Premier League more than 7-8 times this season. But maybe he will become a starter, but he's shown nothing at Palace other than glimpses at the end of last season to suggest he's going to be a 1-in-3, 1-in-2 man even. The Benteke at Aston Villa? Yeah,
I'll take 1 and 2. 19 goals, man, 1 and 2.
I mean, I'd love 1 and 2, but I don't think he's anywhere near that. I think you'll do well to get 1 in 4, 1 in 5. But I mean, other than that, I like the midfield a lot. I think Smith Rowe could get you points. Danny Ings and Tony Shaw. There's a bit of a lack of, I'd say you've gone faith in Ings, but maybe there's 7.5 options like Antonio that are better. Like I look at West Ham's attack and think that's going to score way more goals than Villa's. I know you'd be conscious of Antonio with his injury record, but I look at the squad and think it's really well balanced. It's thorough. You've got a very good bench, perhaps too good a bench. Do you want 5 million Dunk on there? Or I know it'll rotate, but you've not got any bargain basement 4.0 players. You've not got the 4.0 midfielders, the 4.0, there's a 4.0 forward, isn't there, as well? So it's just a very thorough bench, but I guess this is a team for the long run. So I can't go to town on it too much. What are you doing with Woodman, by the way?
I mean, Woodman will go eventually once Darlow and Dubravka come back in.
You want to waste a transfer on a goalkeeper?
Look, I'll probably see it out with Sanchez and he'll go on a wild card.
Yeah,
and I'm not bothered about when I pull the trigger on that wild card. I'll do it when it feels right, whether that's game week 2, game week 3. I'm not one of these that has anything set in stone. It's about maximizing returns to benefit my team the most.
Yeah, I'm the same with wild cards. Never want to book them in. Jace, go on, your turn.
Remember.
Yeah, he's threatening me here, people. You've seen that. I mean, looking at the team, I want to start before we do any discussions. I have a question. Have you spent all your money?
Does it look like he's got 20 million in the bank?
Well, to me, I just think there's a lot of like saving players, but like he's got Smith Rowe in there, and I'm thinking, where else has the money gone? Is there a little bit left?
Well, I tell you, go through the team, and while we're live on air, I'll actually get this team and I'll find out if I've got anything in the bank. But if we do, we're talking about 0.5 or $1 million at most. We're not looking at I'm not walking around with pocketfuls of cash. Just like Mike Ashley buy beers in and that,
Jason saying to you, Ben, have you spent all your money, is a bit like saying to your wife before going out for dinner, are you ready yet? Like, yeah, I am ready, thanks. Yeah. I've just been getting ready for an hour upstairs.
This is what I'm wearing.
Yeah. I did plan on. Oh, you wearing that tonight? Yeah. So
how was that for you?
Wow. Good question.
Well, I thought it was fantastic, but obviously you didn't.
I mean, I do want to know the answer to the question, but at the end of the day, it's a nicely balanced team. I'm not going to criticize Benteke because I can see in your eyes that there's just that there is love for Benteke, and you can't reason with a person when they're that infatuated with an asset. So I'm not even going to try. My criticism then is Danny Yings. I did have him last game week. He had one shot all game, and that was the penalty. I'm a little
point.
Yeah, it's true.
That's my point.
He has that ability, but I've gone a little bit colder off Aston Villa because I expected them to start the season with almost a statement against Watford. And the fact that they didn't, that they looked really lackluster, and you had I don't know if we should keep that in the edit. So with Danny Ings, I think he is, if Aston Villa continue the way that they are, I really question, where they're going to end up, because Matt Targett had to come off for an aged Ashley Young. That guy is nearer to a retirement home than he is to a football pitch, I thought. Then he's done well at Inter Milan. He's come over to Aston Villa, but the fact that, Target has had to be taken off for that bloke it makes me question the rest of the team. They were quite devoid of ideas. They did well with, kind of coming a little bit back into the match, but losing by pretty emphatic scoreline to Watford away, I question Ings in terms of that. So I don't know if he's going to get those chances. But then, like you said, he is really good there. So I've really, called to him. But yeah, the positives of the team is, like you said there, you've got everything covered. If there is an injury, you've got it covered. I like that you've got Son, Salah, Fernandez. That is quite differential. That is very differential Dinnery. And it's just got your own stamp on it. It's very Ben Dinnery. And I really like that about it. It's your unique style of how you play. And I'm not going to criticize that because, you've done really well already. So some people were detractors, not going to name any names like FPL Lynn or as not naming any names, but but yeah, how much did you spend then? Did you get it up?
Right. Got zero.
Zero in the
Done.
bank.
Absolutely zero.
I love that.
I'm interested and amazed, but at the same time, you spent your money on who you want, and I'm not going to criticize.
34 million on Son, Salah, and Bruno.
True. When you have that third premium, Jace, you have only got a pair in there. Ben's gone triple.
And you stick Trent in, and there's over 41 and a half.
Yeah, fair. So looking at our teams, to pick out one player we've all gone with that maybe we wouldn't have last week, I've got Ben Rama, Jace has got Sarr, Ben's got Benteke, or we could go with Son as a better pick. So guys, these were our tips. We were previewing because the week-long games are going to be great, and that's what we'll be focusing our attention on later in the season. But for now, it's the season-long game, which we're focusing on, which you might think, oh, that's just for 1 week. No. It's for 2 weeks because we have extended the deadline at FanTeam for late entry. So if you do want to play, you pay the same price, £20 to enter, and you come in at 79 points. That's only 18 points off the prize money. Pretty good going, and you get to pick all the shiny new players that have done well in game week 1. So give it a go. Your deadline's on Saturday. If you do want that extra team, you can still play. And remember, guys, £200,000 is number one. Massive life-changing money. I'm convinced me, Jason, or Ben are winning it this season. But you can check this show out every week. We'll be doing a preview. So thank you for watching, and do continue to join us. I've been Gianni Buttice, Jason Statman McKenna, and Ben 100 million Dinnery. See you later, guys.